So hi everyone, my name is Lance Rifenburg, and I'm with a company called Flux 7. Has anyone here ever heard of Flux 7 before? I wish I had a prize for you, but I don't. But for those of you that have never heard of us, we are a premier partner with AWS, and we've been doing DevOps. We're focused on DevOps. That's all we do is DevOps. So our little order of magnitude is 2013 is we were deploying containers. 2014, we were doing infrastructure as code, and we've been innovating since then. So really what I wanted to talk with you today about is something that you've been hearing more about lately, which is landing zones. And typically when we see landing zones, we're dealing with two types of customers. One is the customer that's getting ready to embark on their AWS journey, and they haven't done it yet. But they're cautious, and they go, you know what? I want to do this the right way. So there's a segment of customers there. Then there's another segment of customers. Notice the hand gesture there. The other segment of customers has been in AWS. They've been doing it for 2 to 4 years. And somewhere in their journey, they go, you know what? We probably would do it differently, knowing what we know today. If we only knew then, right? Because they're having either security problems, the way that things are set up, they're having manageability problems. So the landing zone is really our answer. It's our foundation. It's not overly flashy. So on the screen here, you'll see a lot of words, and those words from Gartner say is, this top one is, for those of you that are beginning your AWS journey, you're gonna have big problems unless you do a pilot and you learn from that pilot. Okay, that's what the first one says. The second one is a little more self-serving, and we sell consulting services. So take me out of this, but this is important for you no matter what organization you hire, if you decide to hire an organization, is 90% of the organizations that don't hire consultants will have some kind of problems realizing the value. So, like I said, that's self-serving. That's what we do. But it also, they both kind of speak to each other. So, the second one, because we've done like 300 engagements and counting, we learn, we grow, and not only does our team grow, our code base grows. So, when we deliver code, you get the value of all that code and all that tribal knowledge that we have throughout these different customers. So, I think that's pretty important. So what is our definition of a landing zone? Our definition of a landing zone is application agnostic components that are knit together to provide a secure infrastructure for your workloads. So like I said, it's not overly flashy, but it is the foundation. And this is really the key to being able to really scale efficiently in Amazon. So what you're going to see, and kind of what my goal for you is, I'm not really here to sell you anything. I'm hoping that you say, you know what, that guy, the bald guy with a mustache from Flux 7, he said something that you might be able to use in the future. You might reach out to us, you might not, that's fine. But my goal is to give you some knowledge, and that's what I'm here to do. So what we did is our typical engagements are highly customized. Typically, we're working with Fortune 1000 organizations. And what we would do is we'd have a very agile consulting and deployment process, working in 1-week sprints, doing retros, doing demos on a weekly basis. And we continue to learn. But there was a challenge with that. Is when you throw a large price tag at a newer customer, they're like, hey, I'm not really sold on this whole thing. So what we decided to do is, like I said, after 300 plus engagements, we decided, hey, there's some commonalities of all these deployments that people need. Multi-account, CloudWatch, AMI pipelines, things like that. We can package that and offer it as a bundled solution. So, we're a highly technical company, we're Jenkins experts, et cetera, and we worked really hard on making our technology great. And we started selling it, and we learned something. And this is a great learning for anyone starting on DevOps. It wasn't the technology, it wasn't the code. That wasn't the value. The value, what we found and heard back from our customers, because we're doing short feedback loops, constantly asking, is it's the knowledge transfers. So whenever you do anything in DevOps, make sure, because there's a whole process in skilling up the teams. So I would say that was our big finding in doing this packaged offer. So typically with that gold landing zone is we can deploy it in about 2 days. But because of the knowledge transfers, the labs, things like that, is we actually extend it to 10 days. And that's how the customers get the most value. So maybe think of that as you do your projects in-house is, for a day or two of deployment, you better plan on at least that in training. So this is what our, we call it our enterprise DevOps framework. And essentially what we do is we liken this process to a modern freeway, right? It's like we don't even take it for granted. It's just we just assume it's there, right? So the services, that's like a car, right? The pipelines, that's an engine. In our case, we use Jenkins. The landing zone, that is the freeway, and that's great. But you also need guardrails, and so a guardrail on a freeway is obviously a guardrail. In the Amazon lingo, that would be something like your secrets, dynamic secrets, and parameter store, Hashi Vault, things like that. On the other side is what we call the inspectors, and this is more like the flashing sign that says, hey, there's ice on the road ahead. There's police. I can't drive 150 miles an hour down the freeway. It's too dangerous not only for me, but for all the other cars on that. So you kind of get the analogy. And so taking that to Amazon, and what we're doing is we take the code, we automate it, and as we automate it, we're injecting secrets, we're injecting CloudWatch, we're injecting all these things that are approved by the teams, right? So it's consistent, it's secure, and then it lands on a secure foundation. So think of that as depending where you're at in your journey. So, I should have asked, how many people here have at least one AWS account right now? How many more than 10? Good. All right, so what my next slide is, if I remember it, this is what our architecture looks like. Now, this is based on Amazon best practices. Now, you're going to get it. You're going to know when I talk about it looks easy. It looks like my lines are off there. Sorry, it was a Google Slides to PowerPoint problem. But anyway, what we do is best practice is you have an audit account, you have a billing account. Okay, those are always separate. And the reason is they're hard boundaries. You only want your billing people in the billing account. You only want your compliance, your security team in the audit account. We have these other accounts. We have non-prod. Some customers will have VPCs for, let's say, dev, QA, et cetera. Others will have separate accounts for those. That's all up to you. But the point is you want to limit your blast radius, and you want to have a hard barrier on your accounts, and that's for best practices security. Your sandboxes are down here, and they're out of the way of everything, and then obviously you have your production off to the side over here. And in the center is where our shared services is. So shared services is things like Active Directory. This is where we'll have our Jenkins set up. Our transit VPC here, that's where we have two of the transit CSR 1000s by Cisco. And that provides the routing, because you can't do the transitive peering with the VPC, so we use that to link things together. So let's see, what else do I have on this slide? Is there any questions on this slide? Because where I was going with that is we usually get pushback from somewhere along the line of people that have 2 or 3 accounts, maybe 5, and I show them this slide, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's that's administrative nightmare right there. Adding an account to that, it looks easy, like, oh, you just, no. All the back-end work to mesh it is extremely complicated. So what we did to make it easy is we automate it. So we have a thing called account factory in there. So when you want to add an account, it's an automated Jenkins job. Not only does the account get integrated, fully meshed, as you see there, it also hardens. It also pulls off it has the CIS benchmarking. It'll pull off all the default VPCs. It'll go through all the different regions. And so that's part of the automation. Also in this landing zone, what we do is we have a VPC factory. Very similar. Of course, with account factory and VPC factory, there's a big difference. Is accounts in Amazon are difficult to delete. So you can add accounts with account factory. On VPC factory, you can add and delete VPCs, if you follow me, just because that's the nature of how it works. And so I wanted to give you, this is our packaged offer. I just wanted to give you kind of a snapshot of what we're using. You can see that Jenkins is kind of the heart of it. We use the CIS dashboard. We use the CIS dashboard to make sure that everything is secure. We're using an AMI pipeline on our packaged offer here. I think we have 2 different images that we do. Everything has AWS config on it, CloudTrail, CloudWatch, the whole 9 yards. And so that's essentially it. So rather than me standing up here talking, what kind of questions do you have? Because has everyone heard, everyone's familiar, I know you know what a landing zone is, just by the sheer number of accounts you have, but has everyone heard of a landing zone? Is that a common thing that you're hearing now and kind of a need for it? Good. So just remember is on the landing zone is, remember, go back to those 2 types of customers we have. The customers that have been around for a while, they have a decision to make. We either go in and clean up what they have, or you start new. But with Amazon, it's easy to start new, right? And oftentimes that's the best way. And then you just migrate the workloads. So I think that's about it for me. Oh, I do have a shameless plug. We at Flux 7 have a great blog, and you can follow that. We do most of our projects on there, so you can see the kind of work that we're doing. Our work with New Relic has been really good and really strong. What we're doing with New Relic is in that DevOps framework on the monitoring piece, we can add those agents so the infrastructure is monitored, and we can also put the agents in the AMI pipeline. And is everyone familiar with an AMI pipeline is? Some. So AMI pipeline is what we strive to do is have updated, secure images for the different teams, right? It could be a dev team, it could be just the different dev teams. And what that does is it makes the workflow go so much faster. And because we have AWS config on it, we can deal with patches and all that very easily. So that's really all I have. But what I'd like to ask from you is, what kind of questions do you have from me? Because we see a lot of different customers. Like I said, mostly we're dealing with Fortune 1000. But if there's any kind of knowledge that I could give you based on fire.
AMI pipeline, you mentioned patching.
Yeah, there you go.
So for the AMI pipeline, you mentioned patching.
So
that's a good use case, I think. How do you manage teams that already have auto-scaling groups and basically updating the AMI that they might use, or teams that have custom AMIs?
Yeah, so we have a whole process around repo structures and who has access to which repos and who controls which pipelines. And really, we do everything through pipelines. That's the whole trick of it. So when we do auto scaling groups, we're either doing some type of a rolling deployment. We're switching out the AMIs typically. That's the way we like to do it. That's the pro way.
I don't have a question so much as a comment to make, and that is that You all saw, and I'm with AWS by the way, and you all saw an announcement about AWS landing zones and control tower this morning. It's important to differentiate what we're talking about here. This company is one of our top systems integrators. They know how to do landing zones. They've done many, done many of them. We're working at AWS to make self-service landing zones available. What you're seeing here is an additional service on top of that I think is hugely valuable. I would compare it to, do you want to have a really good guidebook, which is what AWS will provide, or you want a guide to take you somewhere to get something done? And the best practices you'll see in our landing zones and what you're seeing in Flux 7s are going to be basically the same.
Yeah, and I think a point in that is where our customers are telling us the value is in the labs and the knowledge transfers. Because I could make the best pipelines in the world for you, but if the team doesn't know how to use it and they're not comfortable with using it, what good does it do? So I would say just as order of magnitude as well is our runbook that we have on just our base level package there. It's a 70-page runbook. Now, that's not to install it. There's on how to maintain it and things like that. And so that's things as you do your DevOps projects. Obviously, everyone knows the importance of documentation, but that's what we're getting from feedback from our customers is, it started off as, I think, as a 20-page runbook, but we've been adding to it. And that's what you need to do as DevOps professionals is train and document, and it'll go from there.